And interestingly enough, there was a case where an online publisher, CNET, published some information about him, all public information, which was available on Google, and he ceased doing all business with CNET after that. So he seems okay with Google collecting all of your information, but he still values his own privacy. Another person who's asked this question is actually Theresa May, when she was head of the Home Office, and that was before she brought in all these huge surveillance laws into the UK, which have almost turned the UK into a surveillance state. And then thirdly, there's this guy. So I found this picture in the last couple of months. Obviously, it's Mark Zuckerberg, and it's pretty funny how he's got his webcam covered up with a sticker. He's got his microphone covered up there. So again, he's quite happy with collecting data about us and intruding on our privacy, but clearly he values his own privacy. So that's all a bit suspicious to me. Why do these people ask this question? So this is the Hawthorn Works, or it used to be in Cicero, Illinois, and it's famous for coining the term the Hawthorn effect, which is a psychological effect. So they were doing a study in this factory about whether lighting levels affect the productivity of workers, and when they turned the light levels up in the factory, productivity went up. But then the weird thing was when they turned the lighting levels down, productivity went up again. So they started looking into this. They did lots of studies, and it turned out that it had nothing to do with the lighting levels, but it was about being watched. The fact that you're being watched changes your behavior, and it, in this case, it increased the workers' productivity. This is a prison called the Panopticon, which was designed in the 1800s by someone called Jeremy Bentham. And his goal was to minimize the cost of running a prison. So it's a circular prison where the guards can sit in the middle and they can survey all of the inmates in the prison. And obviously then you can reduce the amount of guards in the prison. But the weird thing was that the inmates in the cells couldn't see whether someone was looking at them. You could only see inside the cells. So as an inmate in this prison, you never knew when you were being surveyed on, but you knew the potential was there that you'd be surveyed on. This prison was never actually built, but the concept of it was later used by this guy, Jeremy Bentham, in the design of factories. So if you're familiar with a factory setup where you have the manager up in a room with a glass wall and you have the workers downstairs, it's built on the same concept. The workers are under surveillance, and it changes their behavior and it increases performance. So how does our behavior change when we're being surveyed? And the answer was already given to us by Sigmund Freud, the grandfather of psychology, and he had this concept where he split our personalities into three parts of our psyche: the ego, the id, and the superego. So the ego is your childlike part of your psyche. It's the rebel. It's the one that's very creative. It's the one that's always exploring. It's the one that, when someone tells you not to push a button, it's like, I'm going to push that button now. Yes. The id is the part that's the very rational and thinking one. It's the one that thinks, okay, there's a button. If I push it, this happens. If I don't push it, this happens. It thinks it through, and it's generally the moderator between the other two parts of your personality. But the third and most important one is the superego in terms of surveillance. So your superego is like the feeling you get or you used to get when you were a child, and you had your parents kind of watching over you, and you were the child, and you're affected by your parents. And the superego is the part of your psyche that's based on the moral teachings of your parents, or a society, or whoever really gave you rules. So it's the one that makes us behave in socially responsible ways. It makes us want to fit into the crowd, fit into society. It makes us want to please others. So it's very much the part that, if someone tells you not to push a button, then you're like, okay, right, that's a rule, I need to stick by that. I'm going to be a good person, so I won't push that button. It's very much the controlling part of your personality. Another interesting part of it is that if you've ever heard this voice in your head which says, no, I need to do better, come on, this isn't good enough, I need to perfect what I'm doing, the one that's very much pushing you, driving you to perfection, that's the superego talking to you. And obviously this part of your psyche is very much the rule-based one, keeping you in the box, and it's all about obedience and compliance. So in terms of these things, why do we actually need privacy then? Well, a healthy individual, someone who's balanced, needs a balance between all parts of the psyche. It needs balance between the creative part, the crazy part, the intuitive part, but it also needs balance between the rule-based person. And really, to grow up, when you reach puberty, that's when your rebellious part starts to come out. That's when the ego becomes strong, and that's when you start testing your limits, testing how far you can go, how far society lets you go. But if that part is restricted, if your superego is super strong, if your psyche where rules are important is too strong, you'll never really be able to test those limits, to see how far you can go. You can never really grow into the person that you were meant to be, because you're always restricted by that superego part of you. One thing that people studying the Hawthorn effect have noticed is that if you're in the Hawthorn effect, if you're being surveyed, then things like creativity, being intuitive, being free, I guess, are very, very much restricted. That areas of your personality get restricted. And in terms of the digital age, what's really different now in this era is that data is stored permanently. Obviously, we have a phone, it's got a microphone, so it's always got the potential we've got the potential of being surveyed on. But it's not just that, it's everything we've ever done in the past. So if anyone's ever filmed you doing something stupid, maybe when you were drunk, that video is probably stored on someone's phone, or it's been uploaded somewhere. Has it been shared? How long will it be there? These are all questions which sort of deep down inside of us, I think we feel. And now I think maybe not for us yet, but especially for people with children or just children now generally, your parents will probably start posting things about you online from day one, as soon as you're born. So as a child, people growing up now, you're almost, you know that even before you've given consent, even before you've even started thinking, things about you are being stored which potentially could be used later on. Who knows how your schoolmates are going to look upon pictures from your life earlier. And because of this permanence, you know, the guys who would have been in the prison before, at least when they got out, they would have been free and they wouldn't have been under surveillance anymore. But for us, it's a permanent prison of our present and of our past. And then based on the developments of the last few months, another issue is whether this data is actually secure and whether it's going to stay in the place where it was stored in the first place. I think, obviously, security, I think, is constantly improving, and Facebook, what they did happened 4 years ago, but even so, do you really know that data that's out there about you is going to stay in the same place and it's going to be secure? So, what's the answer to the question then? Well, really, to be a healthy person and to really grow up properly, you need a balance between all parts of your personality. And if you're under constant surveillance, it's going to really, really increase the effects of your superego, and you're going to have a much, much harder time developing into a creative, free, slightly rebellious person. You really, to get to know yourself, you really need to have all of these parts of your personality in balance. And then taking it up a level, a healthy society also needs healthy individuals. Society which is very much based on the ego is very emotional, very, I guess, spontaneous. And there's certain societies like that, and then if your superego is really strong, then you get a society which is very much boxed in, very much rule-based. I think we can think of examples of those societies like that. I'd say the healthy one is one where these two meet and there's a healthy balance between these types of people. And I think mental health is a big topic these days, especially in the UK. And I've just got that graph there of between 93 and 2014, mental health issues have gone up 50%. Obviously that's not just because of surveillance, but I think it definitely doesn't help that our behaviour is being restricted in this way. So what's the answer to the question really? You've done nothing wrong. What have you got to hide? Well, I think it's a very, very manipulative question used to put us in a certain frame of mind, and the answer is that it's actually the question that's wrong, and privacy has nothing to do with what we've done wrong. It's about developing as a person, and everybody instinctively needs some privacy in their lives. Thank you very much.